guys, thanks for tuning in for another weekly wrap-up where I share with you the comics, graphic novels that I've read for the week. Okay, first up, I wanted to mention to you guys, yeah, it seems like all I have time lately for is to upload the weekly wrap-ups. But it seems to be working for me. That's what I have time for. That's what I've been doing. I do have some ideas to upload other videos, but I just haven't done so yet. Another thing I wanted to mention is I currently am working for a library now, so it's involving something I have a video idea for. But I was thinking about making a video that pertains to the library and how, you know, different tips you guys may not know about to get items from the library if your specific library where you live doesn't have something you're looking for. As you all know, I'm a cheapskate, and if I can get away with not spending money, then I'll borrow it from the library. So I've learned a lot of things over the years. And now that I work in a library, I got even more ins. It's like feeding my addiction. Well, anyways, let's get on with this weekly wrap-up. The first book I've read this week is Astonishing X-Men Volume 12, Unmasked. This one is one of those volumes that focuses on the characters. And I noticed there was kind of a theme with this volume. It starts out talking about creating, and then another story talks about destroying, and then they all kind of wrap it up with metamorphosis. Basically how people change and all that. Metamorphosis seemed to be the main theme of this volume, though. It's a whole different team of X-Men, which consists of Northstar, who used to be an Alpha Flight member, Gambit, Wolverine, Healer, Sean, Warbird, and Iceman. And they do, every once in a while, they have the Age of Apocalypse Beast, and they have the Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler, too. So it is a little different. This is one that is a recent story, but I found it to be kind of interesting. I mean, I got the gist of the stories. Some people may have found these kind of boring, but like they weren't over the top all that great, but they weren't really bad either. I really like the artwork though. It's kind of sketchy looking. Looks like it was done with a pencil and they didn't really fill it in so you couldn't see the pencil lines, but I thought it looks great. I like the way they drew Wolverine. I mean, he looks like a real person, you know, with his beard and everything. Well, anyways, I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It's not something that I would say is, you know, canon. That's something you have to read if you want to know all what there is to know about what's going on with the X-Men. But it's just sort of a, hey, that was a fun X-Men thing. I learned something new about some of the X-Men. So yeah, I'll give it that much. If you want to learn a few things about some X-Men, maybe some new X-Men you've never heard of before, you can go ahead and check this out. Next up we have Wolverine 3 Months to Die, Book 1. I believe this is another title from the other Wolverine books. And I do have to admit that I heard about how Wolverine was going to die. So that's kind of why I wanted to check this out, because I want to know, but I didn't want to be spoiled. So I didn't like specifically find out which book Wolverine dies in. So this may or may not be the storyline where he dies. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe it was just a metaphor too, just a way to get people to buy the book. Well, anyways, I'm going to have to track down the book before this because it kind of explains a little more. But it tells how Wolverine basically loses his healing ability and he's mortal. And he's kind of trying to still do what he does best, which is be a mercenary type killer. He's left the X-Men. Superior Spider-Man has designed this armor costume for him so he cannot get hurt. He's teamed up with a bunch of new young mutants who I've never heard of. Like, one of them is called Pinch, and she has the power to basically pinch someone's nerves. And there's another guy called Lost Boy. It's kind of cool and different, but it was rather slow. And there was one scene in here, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but because of Wolverine's healing ability, he never had any tattoos. So Wolverine finally gets a tattoo. But the thing was, it was such a lame scene. He ends up getting a rose on his arm, which makes him look like such a pussy. But, like, I kind of got the reference because it was some, like, old lost love or something like that. Well, anyways, the art was okay. I think my expectations for this book were a lot more than what I got out of it. So there's the rose scene I was telling you about. But yeah, I only rated this 3 out of 5 stars. It's just okay. I do have the second part to this story. I just don't know where it's going, and like I said, I don't know if the death of Wolverine is a metaphor or not, because at some point in this book, they mention Wolverine is dead, and I'm Wolverine or something. It just made no sense. It was the stupidest quote ever. But yeah, I really don't know what to say about this. If you guys are interested to see what this new Wolverine is like, then feel free to check it out. Next up we have Wolverine Origin 2. I have already read Origin, the first book, quite a while ago. I think it's been a couple of years since I read that, and I don't even know that if my Goodreads reflects that. I don't know if I entered it or not. Well, anyways, this is picking up from where that one left off, further explains Wolverine's past. And I do have to say I had a lot of high expectations for this. I was thinking, because, Origin, the first volume, was really, really good. It was really helpful to see in depth what, how Wolverine grew up and what made him what he is. The artwork is pretty good to look at, but the story was just it was mostly a story told through pictures and very few words. You see that Wolverine has ran away from home and he's living with wolves and all that, and then he becomes a circus sideshow. And I think the one guy who's doing experiments on him, I think, is Mr. Sinister, before he's, like, mutated into Mr. Sinister or whatever. And this is where he first meets Victor Creed, too. So I thought that part was interesting, and Wolverine at one time fell in love with Victor Creed's sister, and she kind of has similar abilities to Sabretooth, but it was just an okay story, so I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. It wasn't that great. It wasn't terrible. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. If you're interested in learning the history of Wolverine, then I guess you should check it out. After that, I read Wolverine Weapon X, Insane in the Brain. Apparently this one, some villain. He's like a really strange villain. I've never heard of him before, but his name is Dr. Rotwell. He's not even a real doctor. He's like an escaped mental patient who has like some psychic abilities that he uses to warp people's minds. Well, anyways, he convinces Wolverine that he's insane. Wolverine is in a mental institution, but I think it's really an abandoned house or an abandoned asylum or something. And he thinks he's crazy. He thinks that all the things that make him Wolverine make him crazy. And this Dr. Rotwell guy, like, uses brains to, like, make this brain machine that he uses to alter reality. It's really, really strange, and, I just didn't like this. I'll have to admit, this story was really, really bad. Not terribly bad that I gave it a 1 star, but I did rate this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It's just not worth picking up if you don't, if I were you, I would just avoid this book at all costs. It's just, there was nothing redeeming about this book at all. So yeah. Next up we have New Avengers, The Collective. I'm not sure which volume this is, but one thing I do have to say, it was really darn good. This is taking place immediately after the House of M. And it's been a while since I've read the House of M. I do know that it was when the Scarlet Witch, who is Magneto's daughter, she alters reality, and at the end of House of M, she said no more mutants, so like the mutant population has been drastically reduced. Well, anyways, that's the main reason for this storyline, and this mysterious event occurs in Alaska, and they think it's a meteorite, but they reveal later on what really happened, and it has to do with the House of M. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but... And another cool thing that I liked about this story is they had Alpha Flight in it. I know, that's probably a bad scene to show you, because then I spoil what happens to Alpha Flight, but I love Alpha Flight, and I don't understand why it's not a current series anymore, but I thought this was a really, really good story. I rather enjoyed it, just because the anticipation, you didn't know what was going to happen next. And it just builds in momentum until it gets to the very end. And it ends in Genosha. And I just have to say that this was a great, great story. Because it doesn't just, like, ignore that this storyline that happened in the X-Books, like, didn't happen just because it's Avengers. So it, like, acknowledges it and it builds on that storyline, which I thought was pretty cool. So I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. If you liked House of M, definitely check this one out, because not only is it New Avengers, but it kind of ties into the X-Men and what's going on with them too. So it's one of those Avengers X-Men crossover books. Definitely check this one out. Next up, I read Astonishing X-Men Exalted. This one kind of starts out really, really weird. I wasn't sure what was going on. At first I was thinking, oh my god, I'm like, this book sucks. I'm like, because it starts out so weird, you know, Cyclops is kind of, he's acting strange, he doesn't know what's going on, he's kissing Storm, which is just really bizarre. So then he wakes up and he realizes eventually that he's in an alternate reality, another dimension, with other versions of X-Men that he knows, but they're just radically different. And this alternate reality, of course, it's, you know, Magneto versus Professor X, you know, mutants and humans and all that. But I thought this was well written. I know a lot of people didn't like this for some reason. I guess it's because the way the series goes, this one kind of is like a little blip, like it's kind of out of nowhere with the storyline. But it's focusing on Cyclops and his character development. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I love alternate reality versions of characters I love, and I love the X-Men. So this story really did it for me. The artwork's pretty cool. And I'm not going to spoil the ending to this, but the ending was a real huge shocker. It really totally floored me, and this is another one that I rated 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I really, really enjoyed this. If you're into alternate reality versions of superheroes, if you liked like Age of X or Age of Apocalypse, stuff like that, check out this book. I think it was worth it if you're into alternate reality X-Men. Definitely, it was a fun story. Okay, last but not least, we have Superior Carnage. This is another Superior Spider-Man book, but this time we've got Carnage. Cletus Cassidy has become, like, mindless somehow. He's been lobotomized, and he is in prison, and this Inhuman named the Wizard decides to capture the Carnage symbiote and try to make it his own. He basically wants to control the thing. I thought the story was kind of interesting. I absolutely love seeing the symbiotes that were created from the original Venom. So I'm always into seeing, these stories. A lot of people, for some reason, didn't like this. I don't know why. Maybe they thought it was kind of dumb, but I actually enjoyed this. I have to admit, I only rated it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. At one point, I was thinking of rating this 4 out of 5 stars because I thought it was pretty good. But then there were there's some really slow, boring parts. They were just kind of things that just didn't really make a lot of sense. It seemed a little too fast-paced, and the whole mindlessness with the Wizard, the Inhuman guy named the Wizard. Like, I really didn't understand what his whole motivations were for what he was trying to do. So I think that's kind of what killed it for me. But yeah, if you're into Spider-Man and if you're into the symbiotes, then yeah, I would definitely read this one. I'm going to end this on a note where, like I always say, if you guys have any recommendations for me, please let me know. I'm probably going to do another unboxing pretty soon. Yeah, so I got a few books in the mail the other day, and I should probably film that. But I'm always looking for new books to read, and you see how many graphic novels I read. It seems to be where I'm mostly doing these weekly wrap-ups because I just read a lot of comics. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and until next time, later guys.